Kia tupato, he reo kakakakaite haere. Heads up, there's some spicy language in this ep, so viewer discretion is advised.
What are we talking about today, Kura?
Talking about you, man, and your mahi.
Ah, great. Love talking about me. Finally. I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for you to ask for 24 years.
Nau mai, haere mai ki Kapiti with the Cousins.
Episode 5, Inside Job, Cousin Undercover.
Sup, cuz?
Yeah. Sup?
The whole reason why we're having this conversation is because we wanted to dedicate an episode to our whānau Māori who are doing work in places where decisions are being made, where changes are being made at an institutional level. You know, whānau all the way from marae committees to the broader iwi level, all the way to government institution. And I feel like, especially for me, I don't really get to be around those spaces. I don't always know what kind of mahi goes on there. But it's massive because it's a massive part of being Māori today. And this is kind of our kōrero for the day is, do you think that we can make changes to the system from the inside? So you've had like heaps of jobs. I feel
You make it sound like I've really been around the block. Like
been around the block is crazy. But you have had a few like different places you've worked, like you've done youth work, you've done iwi work, you've done government work.
I had initially wanted to, or I put my name up to the iwi and said, please, please, please hire me, I'll take anything. And they said, no. Yeah, turns out they wanted.
Turns out they wanted.
Oh, like experience and qualifications and skills. Apparently. So then I went to the government and they gave me a chance off the bat.
So in working there, you must have had some belief in it.
Well, I mean, I got into it because I needed money. Have you heard of?
Have you ever heard of rent?
Have you ever needing a job?
This is shocking. This is absolutely shocking. We start from like, oh man, we're going to make change. We're the generation, we're the kohanga reo generation. Come on to the start of the podcast. I actually just needed to pay my bills, man.
I did. It was a genuine worry that I had. I hadn't even finished my degree when I was sending out all my applications when I started working for the government or for the Crown. And
those guys.
You know, I'd moved from Ōtautahi, Christchurch, to Pōneke to start that mahi, as I think a lot of people do, to work in government spaces. And I definitely wasn't the only Māori in the organisation, but we're few and far between. I work in policy, and that's a particularly Pākehā-dominated field. There's, you know, and that's pretty widely known, I'd say, within my line of mahi, is that that's somewhere where we really need more Māori workforce.
I have a question. What the hell is policy? I hear you say policy all the time, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I mean, previously I was did policy and planning, which is very different to what I'm doing now. I still work in policy, but in a very different capacity. I don't know how interesting that is to like get into.
No, like I just want
honest.
like what's like the base level, like what it is.
I mean, at the base level, it's writing and reviewing policy, which is legislative documents and plans.
So it's like legal stuff.
I mean, I wouldn't say legal, I'm not a lawyer.
Oh my goodness. I feel like the more I ask, the more lost I become. So policy is like, it's a lot of writing, reviewing things. What's like some of the stuff that you're like, well, like what is it that you're writing?
So it's essentially just rules that people have to comply to, and listing all of the things that, like, if you do this, you'll get in trouble. If you do this, you'll get in a fine or get a fine. But that was a little bit more so RMA.
Oh wait, can I just quickly ask what's RMA?
Oh, sorry,
What's
the
that stand for?
Resource Management Act.
Resource Management Act.
Yeah.
Okay, continue, sorry.
At the moment, I'm working in the health space, and so that's a lot more high level. It's not necessarily compliance, but it is kind of like promises. Like the government promises to do this, or it indicates where funding, that's a big one as well, is funding and resource, and showing where that's going to be distributed. And so that's why it's such, or to me, and I know everyone's like snooze, well, whenever I'm talking about it, snooze policy.
But it's interesting talking about sort of like the differences of all the spaces, because I feel like when I think about institution, I'm thinking about the police and all those, you know, I'm going to say, in my opinion, the big bad guys.
Yeah.
But in the past, used to do youth work, working with kids. Do you think that we can make changes to the system?
Yeah, it's hard to say because I really, really loved that mahi, but it wasn't, I don't know if it was the mahi itself, but it was more so like working with the kids and getting to know them. But then also, it was like the most traumatic job I've ever had. Oh my God! Because some of their own policies that they have in place within how they run their organisation, that and also working with tamariki who are troubled and who do need, I guess, protections in some way. To keep kaimahi safe, but also to keep the other tamariki safe and themselves safe, so they're not harming themselves or those around them. But the way of managing that on the ground and when you're there is really, really hard. Or it was hard for me. I'd, come back and I'd be really, really shaken because the kids would be playing games 1 second and then, 15 minutes later they're triggered by something and then end up having to be kind of calmed down or trying to get them into a place of tow. And that was hard to see. It's hard to see them in pain. So this is not really necessarily about the institution, but just that was kind of what my job
It is though,
like.
because it's still, there's levels to institution, and I feel like I'm always thinking about the big bad guys signing off the papers being like, do this, do that, whatever. You never know who's actually in those rooms making those decisions.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting to hear you talk about being on the ground.
Yeah.
And actually at the personal level of working with the kids, you were actually there to support them, and even you could see what the challenges were. But also, was that a Māori organisation that you were working under?
No, it wasn't.
I'm always curious about Māori that do choose to work in these spaces and what, why. Because I know there's Māori who are in the police.
I definitely felt hesitation from certain people in my life who are very, why would you be working for the government? Why would you be working as a Crown representative?
And that's the thing, because it's like dealing with the push and pull of, working from inside the system.
Yeah.
And that's true. Lots of whānau are like, nah, it's not the go. What's going on?
And I mean, there is truth to that. It is hard grappling with that as well. Not necessarily just coming from whānau, but also being in those spaces. Yes, there are a lot of positives, or I found there to be a lot of positives, but it's also, I was in Pōneke, which is, well, I tend to say it's they have a bit more of a facade of progression and being woke.
Yeah, that's true, because Wellington has this sort of arty, like a little bit more progressive vibe about it, but also they've got the Beehive and they've got Parliament there.
That's so interesting you say that, because in my mind, I very naively assumed, that's where Parliament is, so that must be the heart of partnership. And I don't want to speak on behalf of them, obviously, but I think actually it was probably the opposite. Allegedly. No.
Allegedly. I don't know who said that.
Who said that? I was talking to one of the kaumātua who I look up to, and kind of throughout my life he had always said to me that, you need to play the white man's game, and I always interpreted that as trying to create change from within the system and learning what the tools that they use against us back at them. And then I was speaking to him about it recently because we kind of got into a little bit of a light-hearted debate.
What's that really mean? A light-hearted debate.
I called it off just a casual.
Kōrero noiho.
Kōrero noiho. And I said that back to him and he said, who said that?
Who said to play the white man's game?
Yeah. And I said, well, you. For my entire life, it's been you. You've said that. And it's always been in the back of my mind, like going through uni, being in, previous roles in the government. I've always had that as like, not to completely form my thinking and what I do for mahi, but just in the background. There's something to like lean back on. And then he said, what I meant was, if you're working for the government, you're doing the government's bidding. You're not there to be there as a Māori government worker. You're there to do like government work.
So when he said that to you, you originally thought that he was saying like to enact change as a Māori in government and in these spaces, you got to play the white man's game.
Yes.
But what he's actually saying is, you're working for the government, you got to do what the white man says.
Yeah, they're paying your bills, you got to do the money. You got to do exactly what they say.
That's real though, because that is such a kaumātua thing. Also, it's a real kaumātua thing to say one thing when you're like real young and then years later be like, I would never say that. Who said that? Who would ever say such a thing?
That's so freaking true. It's just hard when you base your whole life around
when it's sort of a pivotal thing they've said to you that was only like a leaf in the breeze for them. Working in an institution, I feel like a lot of the mahi is actually working with iwi. Do you have any like interesting interactions there?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I think it's amazing that it is a lot of working with iwi. I don't know if that's specifically just within the roles that I've had and also like being pushed into those spaces a little bit, but like willingly pushed in as well, because that's where I wanted to be. I don't want to be with... I just started my job and my kaitahu whanoka and co-worker had asked if I wanted to come do some seashell sampling.
Seashell sampling.
Seashell
Seashell
some
sampling.
sciencey.
Some science.
Some science. And I said, yeah, mean. And then she kind of added on after like, oh, it's in Porirua and it's with Ngāti Toa. And I've said it once, I'll say it again, I am kaitahu. I'm kaitahu. And there's a little bit of friction because there's history there.
Well, between our
and so that was in the back of my mind. And something I was just already conscious of upon going there. Like I was a little bit like, but what are you going to do?
What you going to do?
What are you going to do? Got to live, love.
I got to play the white man's game.
I've got games to play. And then, it's very early in the morning because you have to go at the right time to go and get your cockles. And we get there and there's just this big ope of Ngāti Toa. And I start to get a little bit more like, because it's not just that I'm Ngāi Tahu, but it's also that I'm there as a Crown representative, right? So I was like, oh God, what are they gonna say? So we end up walking over and I'm like oh, here I go. And I see this wahine who is in a Highway 35 Te Araroa t-shirt.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like slow motion sprinting.
Like in a dream.
Whānau. Well,
For context, we are from Te Araroa.
And I go up to her and I say, oh my gosh, are you from Te Araroa? Upon my nervousness, I was like, oh, I'm from Te Araroa. I love your t-shirt. And she goes, oh no, I'm from here. And then I was trying not to look disappointed because in my mind I was like, oh yay, a safe person. And she goes, no, I'm actually from here. And in my mind I'm kind of like, oh my God, wolf in sheep's clothing.
The lambskin
tricking me,
Te
they're
Angaroa
tricking
shirt. What are you wearing that State Highway 35 on is?
My komato said they do this.
They warned me about
They
you.
warned me about this. Oh my gosh. And then, anyway, so I go and do the mahi, and it was all good. And then I come back, and we have a little kōrero. Actually, upon my leaving, my coworker had let me know, like, oh, that's blah, blah, blah. And she's like a real strong rakatira in this space. Yeah, so afterwards, we'd gone to like wrap up and be like, good job. And she ended up taking the t-shirt off her back and handing it to me.
Why?
She said, oh, this is obviously not meant to be with me. This is for you. And I tried to say no because I was like,
Wait,
I cannot take this auntie's t-shirt.
so you're like on the beach side and you thought she was a coastie, but she's not only from Ngāti Toa, she's like the Ngāti Toa, and she takes her shirt off.
Yeah, that was actually her wording, was like, this is a tohu that I shouldn't be wearing this shirt. And I'd like you to have it.
That's beautiful.
It was beautiful. Yeah, so that was a really beautiful like interaction that I got to have in my job, and super crazy that it was like pretty right off the bat
Yeah.
getting chucked into it. But yeah, that's a t-shirt that I still have to this day, and it's like Tauka status to me because I just think, yeah, what a beautiful act.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I don't even deserve it, so I just like hang it up and
and pray to it at
it's still
night.
there.
Yeah.
Like a shrine. Yeah, but obviously not every day is like that either. Like the smaller kind of more mundane things, like when I started, actually this happened in a few different roles where it's like I'd just be going to make my cup of tea and people are like confusing me with the cleaner because you're like young and brown and there. I mean, if you're working in those spaces, everyone's a lot older than you generally. I'm not excusing. It's not like I'm excusing it. I'm not excusing it. Because I went home and I was like, this fucking...
Say it like you mean it, Jade. Say it like you mean it.
So this guy,
This
this Nanakea guy had the cheek to call me the cleaner.
This has been a crazy episode. This is a massive conversation that you cannot finish and, touch every single point in one episode.
In a 20-minute episode.
A podcast between two cousins in their 20s. It's way bigger than us. But I want to know, do you think that we can change the system from inside?
Yeah. I think that the change is inevitable. I guess it's just focusing where you, like what change you're really wanting to see. Because there's lots of different things that you can do, whether it be like working directly within the system, within your department and your team to help build their cultural competency, which is obviously cultural labour, I know. But I think, yeah, there are lots of different options. I work in policy, so it's like even just little changes within policy are going to make a big difference about whether people can do this or do that, or where funding is going to go, if it's going to go specifically to, kaupapa Māori services, or if it's going to go predominantly not to kaupapa Māori services. So there's all these little tweaks that can be made. I guess at a higher level, maybe the more systematic or governance rakatira level change, it will probably take a bit longer. But also, the government, they change every 3 years. Māori aren't going anywhere. So it's not like we're in a rush. I mean, it would be nice if it would happen a bit quicker. But also, we're going to be here and we're not going anywhere. Whereas the government...
Who knows? Our government's almost built to change.
Yeah, the government is built to change. Democracy and things. And
Democracy.
Democracy. Heard of democracy?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I reckon I feel similarly. When we first started talking about this topic, even before we started recording and we were doing our research, I was cynical, man. I was like, nah, you can't. The system is a system. Thumbs down, thumbs down. But I think that as we've learned more and talked more about it, it's become clear to me that, he maha ngā huarahi. There's multiple avenues that Māori need to be in for us to enact change. And I do believe that institution is one of them. Because to me, I'm like, you got to be on the ground. You got to be in your community. You got to be working with the people.
Yeah.
But just as much as that is true, you also need people in these other decision-making areas, in these iwi areas, marae areas, so that we can know what is it that we want. Because also, iwi and hapu, we all need different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tautoko.
So I reckon, yeah.
Solved it.
The answer is yes. Objectively. Except no. But that's where we're at right now. We could even change our minds in 5 years.
Yeah, less than that probably.
Yeah, just like the government. E mihi ana kia koutou. Thank you for listening to Kapiti with the Cousins. We'll see you for the next episode.
Ka kite.
Nā New Zealand On Air I tautoko.
Made with the support of New Zealand On Air.